In the heart of a ferocious winter storm, snow whips across the windshield like white fire. A black SUV coughs, sputters, then dies completely on a narrow, forgotten mountain road somewhere in the American Rockies. The engine ticks in surrender. Inside, Hyunwoo Choi grips the steering wheel so hard his knuckles turn white. His breath fogs the air. Beside him, his 11-year-old daughter Minji curls into the passenger seat, wrapped in his coat, eyes wide with fear but trusting him completely. They've been running for 3 days. No heat. No signal. No help coming. Hyunwoo glances at the rearview mirror, nothing but swirling snow and darkness. His enemies are close. He can feel it in his bones. The life he built as a high-ranking Korean Mafia boss is crumbling, and the only thing that matters now is keeping Minji alive. Then headlights cut through the blizzard. A single car, older, reliable-looking, slows and stops behind them. The driver's door opens. A black woman steps out, hood up, scarf tied around her face, boots crunching through fresh powder. She approaches cautiously, flashlight beam dancing across the stalled SUV. Hyunwoo lowers his window an inch. "You okay?" she calls over the wind. He nods once. Minji peeks up, hopeful. The woman, Keisha Davis, looks at the dead engine, then at the shivering child, then back at the man whose eyes hold secrets darker than the night. She could drive away. She should drive away. But something in Minji's small, pleading face stops her. She offers to take them to the next town. They transfer what little they have into her car. Hyunwoo carries Minji, whispering promises in Korean. They drive for less than 10 minutes before Keisha's car begins to whine, then smoke, then die. Both cars gone. The storm roars louder. No way out. Hyunwoo turns to Keisha, voice low, urgent. "Please, don't leave us here." Minji clutches Keisha's sleeve, tears freezing on her cheeks. "Stay with us. Just one night. Please." Keisha looks between the terrified child and the man whose calm mask is cracking, revealing a desperation that has nothing to do with the cold. She could still try to walk for help. She could still save herself. But the temperature is dropping fast. The wind is a knife. And in the eyes of the little girl clinging to her, she sees something she hasn't felt in years, someone who needs her. She exhales, fogging the air. "Okay," she whispers. "Just one night." What she doesn't know yet is that this single decision will ignite a love so fierce and so forbidden it will either save them all, or destroy them. This is their story. Just one night. 3 days earlier, Keisha Davis stood in her cramped Atlanta apartment, staring at the empty space where Marcus's sneakers used to live by the door. The silence felt both liberating and terrifying. 29 years old and she was starting over. Again. "You're really doing this?" her best friend Tasha had asked that morning, watching Keisha stuff winter gear into a worn duffel bag. "I need to clear my head. Need to remember who I am without someone telling me I'm too much or not enough." Tasha had hugged her hard. "You're perfect, Keisha. That man was the problem, not you." But standing alone in her apartment, Keisha wasn't so sure. The relationship with Marcus had ended 3 weeks ago when she'd found texts from his ex. Not even the betrayal had hurt most, it was his words when she confronted him. "You're always fixing everyone else's problems. Maybe focus on yourself for once." The accusation stung because it was partly true. Keisha had always been the helper, the fixer, the strong friend who showed up at 3 a.m. with ice cream and tissues. She'd helped Marcus get his business off the ground, covering rent twice when he was short. And what had it gotten her? Another heartbreak. So she booked a solo road trip. 2 weeks. The Rocky Mountains in winter. Most people thought she was crazy. Keisha thought she was finally being smart. Her crossover SUV, a 2014 Honda with 180,000 miles but faithful as sunrise, sat packed in the parking lot. Clothes, snacks, her sketchbook and colored pencils, a thermos that had survived college, and a carefully curated road trip playlist that ranged from Lauryn Hill to Fleetwood Mac. She'd always loved drawing. It was her first love, before graphic design became her career and bills became her priority. This trip was supposed to be about reconnecting with that, sketching landscapes, finding beauty in the isolation, remembering what it felt like to create for joy instead of deadlines. Keisha locked her apartment and slid into the driver's seat. The engine started with a reassuring rumble. She pulled up her playlist, letting SE's voice fill the car and headed north. The first day was all highway, smooth, easy, the landscape gradually shifting from Georgia pines to Tennessee valleys. She stopped at a roadside diner where the waitress called her honey, and the biscuits tasted like her grandmother's kitchen. She sketched the mountains in the distance while sipping sweet tea. The second day brought her into Colorado, where the air grew crisp and the peaks became dramatic silhouettes against impossible blue skies. She stayed at a budget motel, video called Tasha, and admitted she was starting to feel something like peace. The third day, the day everything changed, began with Keisha standing at a gas station watching snow begin to fall. Real snow, not the dusting Atlanta got once a decade. The flakes were fat and deliberate, settling on her hood, on her shoulders, on the world with quiet insistence. "Storm's coming," the gas station attendant warned. "You sure you want to head up into the mountains?" Keisha looked at the road stretching ahead, winding upward into pines and mystery. Something pulled at her chest, not fear but anticipation. "I'll be fine," she said, though she wasn't entirely sure she believed it. She merged onto the mountain highway as afternoon light began to dim. The snow fell heavier now, transforming the world into something ethereal and strange. She cracked her window despite the cold, wanting to smell the pine, to feel the bite of winter air on her face. The radio played an old song her mother used to love. Keisha sang along, her voice filling the empty car, and for the first time in months she felt something like herself again. "I just want something real," she said aloud to no one, her breath fogging the windshield. "Not another guy who takes and takes. Not another relationship where I disappear. Just something real." The mountains rose around her like ancient guardians. The road narrowed. Snow accumulated on the asphalt faster than the occasional passing plow could clear it. Keisha checked her GPS. The next town was 40 miles ahead. She had plenty of gas, good tires, and enough stubbornness to get her through worse than a snowstorm. Or so she thought. The road climbed higher. The snow became a curtain. And somewhere deep in her chest, beneath the independence and the determination and the playlist still pumping through her speakers, Keisha felt the first whisper of loneliness. She was free. She was strong. She was exactly where she wanted to be. So why did it feel like something was missing? The question lingered as she drove deeper into the storm, not knowing that the answer was already out there in the darkness, waiting for her with desperate eyes and a shivering child wrapped in his coat. Hyunwoo Choi had killed 11 men in his lifetime. He knew the exact number because he remembered each face, each circumstance, each moment when the choice between survival and morality evaporated like morning fog. But he'd never killed a child. And he never would. "Appa, why are we leaving?" Minji's voice was small in the darkness of their Seattle apartment. It was 2 a.m., 3 days before the storm, and Hyunwoo was shoving clothes into a backpack with the efficiency of someone who'd fled before. "We're going on an adventure," he lied, keeping his voice steady. "Remember how I told you about the mountains? We're going to see them." Minji, 11 years old and too perceptive for her own good, watched him with dark eyes that reminded him painfully of her mother. "Are the bad men coming again?" Hyunwoo's hand stilled. He tried so hard to keep that world away from her. After her mother, his wife, his love, had died in childbirth, he'd promised to raise Minji right. To give her music lessons and help with homework and packed lunches with little notes inside. But you couldn't scrub blood off your hands just because you had a daughter to tuck in at night. He'd risen through the ranks of the Korean syndicate operating in the Pacific Northwest. Not because he wanted power but because he was good at what he did, efficient, calm, effective. They called him the Ghost because he finished jobs without leaving traces. Until last week when they'd ordered him to eliminate a family. A father who'd borrowed money from the wrong people. A mother. 2 children. Hyunwoo had looked at the photos and seen Minji's face in those kids' eyes. He'd made a phone call instead, warned the family, helped them disappear. Then he'd destroyed his phones, emptied his cash reserves, and started planning his own exit. The syndicate didn't forgive betrayal. They'd already sent someone to his apartment. Hyunwoo had found the surveillance, the tracker on his car. They were watching, waiting for the right moment. So he'd created his own moment. "The bad men won't find us," he told Minji, kneeling to meet her eyes. "I promise you, baby. We're going somewhere safe. Somewhere new." "Canada?" she asked. She'd heard him on the phone making arrangements with an old contact who owed him a favor. A clean identity waiting in Vancouver, a small apartment, a chance to disappear. "Canada," he confirmed. "We'll start over. You'll make new friends. Learn to ice skate maybe." Minji's smile was tentative but real. "Will you teach me Korean curse words like Uncle Jinho used to?" Despite everything, Hyunwoo laughed. "Absolutely not." They'd left through the service entrance, avoiding cameras, slipping into the black SUV he'd bought with cash 2 days ago. The vehicle was clean, unregistered, untraceable. It would get them the 1,400 miles to the Canadian border. The first day of driving had been tense. Hyunwoo checked mirrors constantly, took random exits, doubled back to ensure they weren't followed. Minji sat quietly, sensing his fear even when he tried to hide it. The second day they'd entered Montana. Snow began falling in the mountain passes. Hyunwoo felt his shoulders relax slightly. The weather would slow anyone pursuing them. Minji asked questions. "Appa, will we have a garden in Canada? Can I get a cat? Will you be happy there?" That last question broke his heart. "I'll be happy anywhere you are," he told her honestly. She'd fallen asleep against the window, trust absolute in her small body. Hyunwoo drove through the night, running on coffee and adrenaline and the fierce protective love that had become his entire world. By the third day they'd crossed into the Rockies. The snow was relentless now, transforming the landscape into a monochrome nightmare. The SUV's heater worked overtime. The engine light flickered on, then off, then on again. "Appa, is the car okay?" Minji asked, noticing his frown. "It's fine," he said, though the temperature gauge was climbing. "Just the cold." But it wasn't fine. The engine began making a grinding sound. The power steering stiffened. And when Hyunwoo tried to accelerate up a steep grade, the SUV coughed like a dying animal. "No, no, no," he muttered, guiding the vehicle to the shoulder. The engine died with a pathetic whimper. Silence filled the car except for the wind screaming outside. Minji looked at him with wide eyes. "Appa?" Hyunwoo tried restarting the ignition. Nothing. He popped the hood, climbed out into the brutal cold, and immediately knew it was hopeless. Coolant leaked onto the snow. The engine block was cracked from the cold. They were stranded. No cell signal. No houses visible. Just snow and darkness and the temperature dropping by the minute. Hyunwoo climbed back inside, wrapping his coat around Minji. Her teeth were already chattering. "It's going to be okay," he promised, though he had no idea how. His daughter, his reason for breathing, shivered against him. And Hyunwoo Choi, who'd faced down armed rivals without flinching, felt fear colder than the storm. Then, like a miracle he didn't deserve, headlights appeared in the rearview mirror. Keisha almost didn't stop. Her headlights caught the black SUV first, expensive looking, out of place on this forgotten mountain road, hood buried in snow. Everything in her city-smart brain screamed, "Keep driving." This was how horror movies started. This was how women ended up in ditches. But then she saw the smaller silhouette in the passenger seat. A child. "Damn it," Keisha muttered, already slowing down. She pulled up behind the SUV, leaving her car running, and grabbed her flashlight from the glove box. The cold hit her like a physical force when she opened the door, sharp, biting, stealing her breath. She approached cautiously, flashlight beam dancing across the disabled vehicle. The driver's window lowered exactly 1 inch. "You okay?" she called over the wind. The man inside nodded once. His face was partially shadowed, but she caught the sharp lines of his jaw, the intensity in his dark eyes. Next to him, a little girl peeked up, and Keisha's heart clenched at the fear in that small face. "Engine's dead," the man said. His voice was low, controlled, accented in a way she couldn't quite place. "No signal." Keisha looked at the child again, maybe 10 or 11, bundled in an adult's coat that swallowed her small frame. "Walk away," her survival instinct whispered. "Not your problem." But Keisha had never been good at walking away. "Next town's about 30 miles, she said. "I can give you a ride." The man's eyes widened slightly, surprise, maybe relief. "You would do that?" "Can't leave a kid out here in this." Keisha tried to sound casual, like she picked up strangers in blizzards all the time. "Come on. Get your stuff." The man, Hyunwoo, he'd introduce himself as, moved with swift efficiency. He grabbed 2 bags from the back, then carefully lifted his daughter from the passenger seat, whispering to her in what sounded like Korean. Keisha opened her back door. "You can put her in the back where it's warmer." "Thank you," the little girl whispered as Hyunwoo settled her into the seat. "Thank you, pretty lady." Keisha's heart squeezed. "You're welcome, sweetheart. What's your name?" "Minji." "That's beautiful. I'm Keisha." Hyunwoo slid into the passenger seat, and Keisha caught her first good look at him in the dome light. He was maybe mid-30s, handsome in a severe way, sharp cheekbones, dark hair slightly too long, eyes that had seen things she probably didn't want to know about. He wore all black and there was something coiled about him like a spring wound too tight. "Hyunwoo," he said quietly. "Thank you for stopping." "Don't thank me yet," Keisha said, trying for lightness as she put the car in drive. "My car's old. Might die before we get there." She meant it as a joke. The universe apparently had other plans. For the first few minutes nobody spoke. The heater hummed. Snow pelted the windshield. Keisha focused on the road, which was becoming harder to see. "You're traveling alone?" Hyunwoo asked eventually. "Road trip," Keisha said. "Needed to clear my head." "In a blizzard?" She glanced at him, caught the hint of something that might have been amusement in his eyes. "Didn't plan on the blizzard part." "We didn't either." His gaze drifted to the rearview mirror, checking on Minji, who was already dozing. Something in that look, the tenderness, the protectiveness, made Keisha's chest tighten. "She's your daughter?" "Yes." "Just the 2 of you?" "Just us." There was finality in his tone that discouraged further questions. Keisha nodded, understanding boundaries. She'd had enough intrusive questions in her own life to know when to back off. But curiosity still itched at her. What were they doing out here? Where were they going? And why did this man, this stranger, feel dangerous and safe at the same time? Thank you, Hyunwoo said again, softer this time. Truly, not many people would stop. I've been helped before when I needed it, Keisha said, thinking of Tasha, of her grandmother, of the teacher who'd encouraged her art when everyone else said it wasn't practical. Just paying it forward. Hyunwoo turned to look at her fully, and Keisha felt the weight of that gaze. There was something almost physical about it, like he was seeing past her defenses to something deeper. You have a kind heart, he said. It wasn't a line. It wasn't flirtation. It was stated like a simple fact, and somehow that made it more powerful. Keisha's hands tightened on the wheel. Don't go thinking I'm some kind of saint. I almost didn't stop. But you did. Yeah, she said quietly. I did. From the back seat, Minji murmured something in Korean. Hyunwoo responded in the same language, his voice gentle, paternal. When he turned back to Keisha, there was a small smile on his lips. She says you smell like vanilla. Keisha laughed, surprised. My lotion. Is that okay? She likes it. So do I. The admission hung in the air between them, innocent yet weighted with something neither of them was ready to name. Keisha cleared her throat. So, where were you two headed before? The car made a sound. A grinding, unhappy sound that Keisha knew too well. No, she whispered. No, come on, baby. The engine light flashed. The power steering went stiff. And with a final, pathetic whine, Keisha's faithful Honda gave up. They coasted to a stop in the middle of nowhere. Steam rose from under the hood. Keisha stared at the dashboard in disbelief. You've got to be kidding me. Hyunwoo was already unbuckling. Pop the hood. They both got out into the storm. The cold was worse now, vicious and absolute. Hyunwoo examined the engine with the flashlight while Keisha stood there, numb with shock. Radiator hose, he said finally. Burst from the cold. Can you fix it? He looked at her, snowflakes catching in his dark hair. Not here. Not without parts. Keisha's phone had no signal. Neither did his. The wind howled louder as if mocking them. This can't be happening, Keisha said, more to herself than to him. Hyunwoo moved closer and she caught the scent of him, something clean and masculine beneath the cold. We'll figure it out. How? Panic crept into her voice. We're stuck. Both cars are dead. It's freezing in. Keisha. Her name in his mouth was firm but gentle. Breathe. She did, the cold air burning her lungs. Minji appeared at the car window, small face pressed to the glass, scared. And Keisha understood. This wasn't just about her anymore. Whatever happened next, they were in it together. They sat in Keisha's dead car with the doors closed, trying to preserve whatever heat remained. Minji was wedged between them on the front bench seat, and Keisha wrapped her spare blanket around the girl's shoulders. We can't stay here all night, Keisha said, stating the obvious. No, Hyunwoo agreed. His jaw was set, eyes scanning the darkness outside. The temperature will drop below zero. The car will freeze. So what do we do? Before he could answer, Minji spoke up in a small voice. I'm scared, Appa. Hyunwoo's expression softened instantly. He pulled her close, murmuring reassurance in Korean. Keisha watched the transformation, this tense, guarded man becoming something tender and open when he looked at his daughter. We're going to be okay, Minji, he said, switching to English, probably for Keisha's benefit. I promise. Minji nodded, trusting him completely, and something about that trust made Keisha's throat tight. Tell me about you, Minji said suddenly, looking at Keisha with curious eyes. Appa says you're helping us. Why? Keisha smiled despite their circumstances. Well, I couldn't just leave you out here, could I? But you don't know us. That's true. But sometimes you help people just because it's the right thing to do. Minji considered this seriously. Are you from here? The mountains. No, I'm from Atlanta. Down south. Very different from this. Keisha gestured at the snow. We get maybe one day of snow every few years. What do you do in Atlanta? I'm a graphic designer. I make things look pretty on computers. Keisha pulled out her phone, no signal, but she showed Minji photos of her work. See? Logos, websites, advertisements. Minji's face lit up. You're an artist. Sort of. I love drawing, Minji said shyly. Appa says I'm good. You are very good, Hyunwoo confirmed. I love drawing too, Keisha said. Actually, that's part of why I'm on this trip. I wanted to sketch the mountains, remember what it's like to make art just for fun. Can I see your drawings? Keisha retrieved her sketchbook from the back, and Minji flipped through it with reverent hands. Hyunwoo watched over her shoulder, and Keisha felt self-conscious under his gaze. These are beautiful, he said quietly. You have real talent. They're just doodles. No. His eyes met hers. They're more than that. The compliment warmed her more than it should have. Minji yawned, the adrenaline wearing off. She leaned against Keisha's shoulder, and Keisha instinctively wrapped an arm around her. You can sleep, sweetheart, Keisha murmured. Will you stay? Minji's voice was drowsy but anxious. I'm not going anywhere. Within minutes, the girl was asleep, breathing soft and even. Keisha looked down at the dark head resting against her shoulder and felt a wave of protectiveness that surprised her. Hyunwoo was watching them with an expression Keisha couldn't quite read. She doesn't usually trust strangers this quickly. Maybe she's a good judge of character. Maybe. He paused. Or maybe you're exactly what you seem, someone genuinely kind. Keisha shifted, uncomfortable with the intensity of his attention. You don't know me well enough to say that. I know you stopped when you could have kept driving. I know you're gentle with my daughter. I know you're scared right now but trying not to show it. His voice dropped lower. I know enough. Their eyes held in the dim light. Keisha felt her pulse quicken. We should keep talking, she said, needing to break the moment. Stay awake, stay warm. Hyunwoo nodded. Tell me more about your trip. Why now? Bad breakup, Keisha admitted. Needed space to figure out who I am without someone else defining me. I understand that. Something flickered in his expression. Pain, maybe? Losing yourself in someone else. You sound like you've been there. A long time ago. He was quiet for a moment. My wife. Minji's mother. She died when Minji was born. I'm so sorry. It was 11 years ago, but some days it feels like yesterday. He looked at his sleeping daughter. She's all I have. All that matters. You're raising her alone? Yes. That must be hard. It's everything. The way he said it, simple, absolute, made Keisha's chest ache. They sat in silence for a while, the storm raging outside, Minji warm between them. I have coffee, Keisha said eventually, reaching for her thermos. It's probably lukewarm by now, but... Thank you. Their fingers brushed as she handed it to him. The contact was brief but electric. Hyunwoo took a sip, then passed it back. Keisha drank, tasting where his lips had been, and felt her face heat. What about you? She asked. Where were you going? Hyunwoo hesitated. Away from bad people. Toward a new life. That's vague. It has to be. His eyes were serious. I'm sorry. There are things I can't tell you. Things that might frighten you. You don't scare me, Keisha said, surprising herself with the truth of it. I should. But you don't. He looked at her like she was a puzzle he couldn't solve. You're either very brave or very foolish. Maybe both. A small smile tugged at his lips, the first real one she'd seen. It transformed his face, made him look younger, less haunted. I'm glad you stopped, he said softly. Even if it led to this. Me too, Keisha whispered. Outside the wind screamed. Inside, something warmer than the fading heat began to bloom between them. Minji stirred, murmuring in her sleep. Hyunwoo adjusted his coat over her, and Keisha noticed how careful his hands were, strong but gentle, capable of both protection and tenderness. She imagined what those hands might feel like on her skin and immediately shoved the thought away. Not appropriate, she scolded herself. You just met him. You're in survival mode. This is not the time for... But when Hyunwoo reached over to adjust the blanket around her shoulders, letting his hand linger for just a moment on her arm, Keisha knew it was already too late. Chemistry didn't care about timing or circumstances or the fact that both their cars were dead in a blizzard. The storm's getting worse, Hyunwoo said, looking out the window. Keisha followed his gaze. The visibility was down to nothing. Snow had already halfway buried the car. We can't stay here much longer, she said. No. We can't. Neither of them said what they were both thinking. If they didn't find shelter soon, they wouldn't survive the night. Tell me something true, Keisha said an hour later. They'd been talking to stay awake, to stay warm, to keep the fear at bay. Minji had woken briefly, accepted some water and crackers from Keisha's emergency stash, then dozed off again with her head in Keisha's lap. Hyunwoo looked at her in the darkness. Something true. Yeah. Something real. Something you don't tell most people. He was quiet for a long moment. I never wanted this life. What life? The one I had before we started running. He stared at his hands. I grew up in Seoul. My parents owned a small restaurant. I was going to be a teacher, literature, maybe poetry. I loved words, loved stories. What happened? My father borrowed money from the wrong people. When he couldn't pay, they came for him. For my mother. His voice went flat. I was 19. I killed the man who hurt my mother. Keisha's breath caught, but she didn't pull away. After that, I had two choices. Prison or joining them. I chose to live. I chose to survive. He finally looked at her. And then I got good at it. Too good. They sent me here to America to expand operations. I became someone I didn't recognize. But you left, Keisha said softly. You're running from them now. Because they asked me to kill a family. A father, mother, 2 children. His jaw clenched. I looked at those kids and saw Minji. I couldn't do it. I warned them, helped them escape. And now they're hunting you. Yes. Keisha should have been terrified. Should have demanded he get out of her car immediately. Instead, she reached over and took his hand. You're a good man, she said. You don't know that. I know you protected that family. I know you love your daughter more than your own life. I know that's who you really are, not the things they made you do. Hyunwoo's fingers tightened around hers. You see the world very simply. Maybe. Or maybe I just see you clearly. He raised her hand to his lips, pressing a kiss to her knuckles that was both grateful and desperate. Keisha's heart stumbled. Your turn, he said, still holding her hand. Tell me something true. I'm afraid I'll never find love, Keisha admitted. Real love. The kind that doesn't take and take until there's nothing left of me. You deserve that kind of love. How do you know? Because I can see you too, Keisha Davis. And you're extraordinary. The compliment landed like a physical touch. Keisha felt tears prick her eyes. I'm really not, she whispered. You are. You stopped for strangers in a storm. You're comforting my daughter like she's your own. You're sitting here learning terrible things about me and you haven't run. His thumb traced circles on her palm. You're the kind of person I thought didn't exist anymore. Hyunwoo. Do you feel this? He asked urgently. This thing between us? Keisha's breath shallowed. Yes. I know it's impossible. I know I have nothing to offer you but danger. But I need you to know. He stopped, struggling with words. Since my wife died, I've been numb. Going through motions. Surviving. But with you, I feel alive again. Awake. I feel it too, Keisha admitted. And it terrifies me. Why? Because you're going to leave. You have to. You're running for your life and her voice broke. I can't do temporary anymore. I can't be someone's pit stop. You wouldn't be, Hyunwoo said fiercely. Keisha, if circumstances were different. But they're not. Minji shifted in Keisha's lap, murmuring something in Korean. Automatically, they both reached to settle her, their hands meeting on the blanket. She really likes you, Hyunwoo said, voice softer now. She's easy to like. Will you tell me more about your art? He asked, clearly changing the subject to safer ground. What do you love drawing most? Keisha let him shift the conversation, grateful for the reprieve. People. Faces. I love trying to capture emotion in a look, you know? The way someone's eyes change when they smile. The way grief shows up in the set of someone's shoulders. Draw me something, Minji said sleepily, not quite awake. Keisha smiled. What should I draw? Us. All 3 of us. Together. Hyunwoo and Keisha exchanged a look over the girl's head, surprised, tender, complicated. Okay, Keisha whispered. I will. She pulled out her sketchbook and, using the faint light from her phone, began to draw. Minji sat up to watch, leaning against Keisha. Hyunwoo moved closer to see. Keisha sketched quickly, 3 figures huddled together in a car, faces soft with something like hope. Minji in the middle, Keisha on one side, Hyunwoo on the other. A makeshift family born of desperation and snow. It's perfect, Minji breathed. Can I have it? Hyunwoo asked quietly. Really? To remember this. To remember you. Keisha carefully tore the page from her book and handed it to him. Their fingers touched again, and this time neither pulled away quickly. Thank you, he said. Minji grinned. Appa, you should kiss her. Like in the movies. Minji. Hyunwoo sounded mortified. Keisha laughed despite everything. Your daughter has opinions. Many opinions, he confirmed, but he was looking at Keisha with heat in his eyes that had nothing to do with the temperature. A strange sound interrupted the moment, a groan, then a crack. What was that? Keisha asked. Hyunwoo looked at the dashboard. The temperature gauge was dropping. Fast. The engine's freezing solid, he said grimly. We're losing heat. As if to confirm his words, frost began forming on the inside of the windows. Keisha's teeth started to chatter. We have to find shelter, Hyunwoo said. Now. Or we won't make it to morning. The storm howled agreement outside. And Keisha knew, with terrifying certainty, that they were running out of time. The cold was no longer uncomfortable. It was lethal. Keisha could feel it in her bones, in the way her fingers wouldn't stop shaking, in the numbness creeping up her toes despite her boots. Minji had gone quiet, which was somehow worse than her being scared. The girl just stared at the frost spreading across the windows like crystal lace. We need to move, Hyunwoo said, his breath creating clouds in the air. Walking is better than sitting. Walking where? Keisha gestured at the whiteout beyond the windows. We can't see 5 feet in front of us. There might be a house, a barn, something. Or we could walk in circles until we freeze to death. Hyunwoo's jaw clenched. Staying here is certain death. Keisha knew he was right. She could already feel herself getting sluggish, thoughts turning fuzzy at the edges. That was how hypothermia started. You got tired, confused, then you just stopped. Okay, she said. We walk. But we stay together. Hyunwoo nodded. He bundled Minji in every piece of clothing they had. 2 coats, 3 scarves, Keisha's spare gloves. The girl looked like a small, shivering marshmallow. Are we going to die, Appa? Minji asked in a small voice. No, Hyunwoo said firmly. Absolutely not. But when he looked at Keisha over Minji's head, she saw the fear he was hiding from his daughter. They stepped out of the car into the storm. The wind hit Keisha like a sledgehammer. It tore the breath from her lungs, turned her exposed skin to ice in seconds. She couldn't see, couldn't hear anything but the roar of the blizzard. Hyunwoo grabbed her hand with one of his, held Minji with the other. Don't let go, he shouted. They walked, or tried to. The snow was thigh-deep in places, the wind constantly trying to knock them down. Keisha's flashlight beam barely penetrated 3 feet. Minutes felt like hours. Keisha's legs burned, then went numb. She stumbled and Hyunwoo caught her, pulled her close. Keep moving, he yelled. But there was nothing. No houses. No lights. Just endless white and screaming wind and cold so intense it felt like knives. Appa, I can't. Minji's voice was weak. Hyunwoo lifted her into his arms, though Keisha could see the strain in his face. He was strong, but even he had limits. There. Keisha screamed, pointing. Through the snow, barely visible, a darker shape. A structure of some kind. They fought toward it, each step an act of will. Keisha's vision swam. Her body wanted to lie down, to sleep, to stop fighting. But Hyunwoo's hand in hers kept her moving. Closer. Closer. A building. Old, half-buried in snow, but real. Hyunwoo kicked the door. Once. Twice. The third time it gave way with a crack of frozen wood. They tumbled inside. Darkness. But blessed relief from the wind. Keisha collapsed on the floor, gasping. Minji was crying softly. Hyunwoo fumbled with the flashlight, and the beam revealed their salvation. A cabin. Abandoned, dusty but intact. There was a fireplace. Old furniture. Shelves with ancient canned goods. Oh, thank God, Keisha whispered. Hyunwoo was already moving, checking the space. Windows are intact. Door can be secured. Chimney looks clear. He found wood, old logs stacked by the fireplace, dry after years inside. Keisha's numb fingers couldn't manage her lighter, but Hyunwoo had matches in his pocket. The first match sputtered out. The second caught. And then, miracle of miracles, fire. It started small, just a flicker. But Hyunwoo coaxed it carefully, adding kindling, then larger pieces. Within minutes, blessed heat began to radiate into the frozen room. Minji crawled toward it, hands stretched out, crying harder now with relief. Keisha just sat there, shaking uncontrollably, unable to believe they'd actually made it. Hyunwoo wrapped a dusty blanket around Minji, then came to Keisha. You're in shock, he said gently. Let me help you. He peeled off her wet coat, her frozen gloves, wrapped her in another blanket he'd found. Then he pulled her close to the fire, positioned between his legs, his chest against her back. Body heat, he murmured. It's the fastest way to warm up. Keisha leaned into him, too cold and exhausted to care about propriety. She could feel his heart beating against her shoulder blade, strong and steady. We made it, she whispered. We made it, he confirmed. Minji nestled against Keisha's side, and the three of them huddled together by the fire, slowly thawing. I thought we were going to die, Minji said quietly. We didn't, Hyunwoo said. Because of Keisha. Because of all of us, Keisha corrected. She looked around the cabin. It was small, one room basically. But it had a roof, walls, a fireplace. There were blankets in a chest, old but usable. Canned soup on the shelves. It was dusty and cold, but it was shelter. It was life. We should stay here, Hyunwoo said. At least until the storm passes. How long will that be? Minji asked. Hyunwoo looked at the window where snow was already piling up. A day. Maybe more. Keisha felt her heart sink. She'd told herself she'd help them for one night. Just get them to safety. But now she was snowed in with a former Mafia enforcer and his daughter in an abandoned cabin in the middle of nowhere. And the terrifying part? She didn't want to be anywhere else. Morning came slowly. Or maybe it was still night. Time had become meaningless in the cabin, measured only by the fire's needs and the storm's rage. Keisha woke to find herself entangled with Hyunwoo and Minji on the old couch they'd pulled near the fireplace. Minji slept between them, face peaceful now, color back in her cheeks. Hyunwoo was already awake, watching the window. "Is it still snowing?" Keisha whispered. "Yes." His voice was grim. "Worse if anything." Keisha sat up carefully, not wanting to wake Minji. Her muscles ached from cold and exhaustion, but she was alive. They all were. "I should try to walk out," she said. "Find help." Hyunwoo's head whipped toward her. "No. Someone has to. It's a death sentence." He gestured to the window. "Visibility is 0. Temperature is -10. You wouldn't make it 100 yards. We can't just stay here forever. We stay until the storm passes. That could be days. Then we wait days." His voice was hard now. "I won't let you walk out there and die." Keisha felt frustration bubble up. "You can't order me around?" "I'm not ordering. I'm begging." The hardness cracked, revealing desperation underneath. "Please don't leave us here." The words hung in the air between them. Keisha saw it then, the absolute terror in his eyes. Not for himself. For Minji. For her. "Hyunwoo. I can't protect you out there," he said roughly. "I can't keep her safe and you safe if you're scattered in the storm. I need—" He stopped, swallowed hard. "I need you here. With us." Before Keisha could respond, Minji stirred. Her eyes opened, unfocused at first, then landing on Keisha. "You're still here," the girl said, relief flooding her face. "Of course I am." But Minji must have heard their argument because tears filled her eyes. "Don't go. Please don't go." "Sweetheart, I'm just talking about finding help." "No." Minji grabbed Keisha's arm with both hands. "Don't leave us alone. Please. I'm scared." Keisha's heart broke. She looked at this child who'd known her less than 24 hours but was clinging to her like a lifeline. "Minji, your dad is right here. You're not alone. But I want you too." The tears spilled over. "You make me feel safe. You make Appa smile. Please don't go. Please." Hyunwoo gently touched his daughter's shoulder. "Minji, Keisha has her own life. We can't ask her to." "Just one night," Minji sobbed. "You said just one night. But I don't want just one night. I want you to stay." Keisha pulled the crying girl into her arms, rocking her gently. Over Minji's head, her eyes met Hyunwoo's. He wasn't trying to hide anymore. She saw everything, the fear, the longing, the hope he was trying desperately not to feel. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "This isn't fair to you." "What do you want?" Keisha asked. "Not what's fair. Not what's practical. What do you actually want?" His throat worked. "I want you to stay." "Why?" "Because when I look at you, I remember what it feels like to hope." His voice was raw. "Because my daughter trusts you. Because in one day you've made me feel more than I have in 11 years. Because—" He stopped, shook his head. "Because I'm terrified of what it means if you leave." Keisha felt tears burning her own eyes now. Minji pulled back, looking up at her with red-rimmed eyes. "Do you want to stay with us?" It was such a simple question. But the answer was complicated and terrifying and absolutely clear. "Yes," Keisha whispered. "I do." "Then stay," Minji pleaded. "Please. Just until the storm ends. Just one more night." Just one more night, Keisha thought. And then what? You say goodbye? You walk away from this child who looks at you like you hung the moon? You leave this man who sees you in a way no one else ever has? But she couldn't think about that now. She could only think about the two people in front of her who needed her to stay. "Okay," she said softly. "I'll stay. Not just for tonight. Until the storm passes. Until it's safe." Minji threw her arms around Keisha's neck, squeezing hard. Hyunwoo reached out, his hand finding Keisha's where it rested on Minji's back. His fingers intertwined with hers and he squeezed once, gratitude and relief and something deeper that neither of them could name yet. "Thank you," he said. Outside, the storm raged on. Inside, by the firelight, three people who'd been strangers 24 hours ago held each other like family. And Keisha knew, with terrifying certainty, that this was going to hurt when it ended. But she stayed anyway. The cabin became their world. Hyunwoo checked the supplies while Keisha inventoried their resources. The news was mixed. There was firewood for maybe 3 days if they were careful. The canned goods were dusty but still sealed. Tomato soup, beans, some kind of stew. Not gourmet but edible. Water was easier. Hyunwoo rigged a system to melt snow on the fire. Minji helped organize the blankets they'd found, turning the couch into a proper nest. "It's like camping," she said with determined cheerfulness. "Right, Appa?" "Exactly like camping," Hyunwoo agreed, though his eyes met Keisha's over his daughter's head with shared knowledge that this was nothing like camping. but they all played along. For Minji. For themselves. By afternoon, they assumed it was afternoon based on Hyunwoo's watch. They'd settled into a rhythm. Keisha heated soup over the fire while Hyunwoo fortified the door against the cold. Minji drew pictures with the colored pencils Keisha had packed. They ate together, crowded around the fire, passing the single pot between them. "This is the best soup I've ever had," Minji announced. Keisha laughed. "It's from a can that probably expired 5 years ago. Still the best." After lunch, Minji grew drowsy again. The warmth, the food, the safety, all of it was catching up with her small body. "Nap time," Hyunwoo said gently. "I'm not a baby," Minji protested through a yawn. "Even grown-ups need rest after what we've been through." Keisha helped settle her on the couch, tucking blankets around her. Minji grabbed Keisha's hand before she could pull away. "Will you be here when I wake up?" "I promise." "And Appa?" "Always," Hyunwoo said from where he was adding wood to the fire. Satisfied, Minji closed her eyes. Within minutes, her breathing evened out. Keisha and Hyunwoo found themselves alone, the only sounds the crackling fire and the wind outside. "She's resilient," Keisha said softly, watching the sleeping child. "She's had to be." Hyunwoo sat beside Keisha on the floor near the fire. "I tried to give her a normal life. School, friends, music lessons. But she always knew something was wrong. Children sense these things. You're a good father. I've made terrible choices. You're making better ones now." He looked at her, firelight dancing in his dark eyes. "Because of you." "No." "Yes." He shifted closer. "Keisha, you have to know how extraordinary you are. I'm really not. I'm just kind, brave, beautiful." Each word was deliberate. Warm in a way that has nothing to do with temperature. The kind of person who makes the world better just by being in it. Keisha's breath caught. "Hyunwoo. I know I have no right to say these things. I know I'm a man with blood on his hands and enemies hunting him. I know I can't offer you anything but danger." He took her hand, cradling it gently between both of his. "But I need you to know, before whatever comes next, that meeting you might be the best thing that's ever happened to me." "Don't say that." "Why not?" "It's true." "Because it makes it harder," Keisha whispered, tears stinging her eyes. "When you leave. When this ends. Then maybe it doesn't have to end. You're running for your life. You said it yourself. You're taking Minji to Canada, starting over. Come with us." The words dropped between them like stones in still water. Keisha stared at him. "What?" "Come with us," Hyunwoo repeated urgently. "I know it's insane. I know we just met. But Keisha, I feel more for you after 2 days than I've felt for anyone in 11 years. Minji adores you. And he stopped, searching for words. "I think I could love you. I think maybe I already do." Keisha's heart was hammering so hard she thought it might break through her chest. "You don't even know me." "I know enough. I know you're everything I didn't know I was looking for." "This is crazy." "I know. We're in survival mode. This isn't real. It's just." Hyunwoo cupped her face gently, his thumb brushing her cheek. "Does this feel like just anything?" It didn't. Felt like everything. Keisha closed her eyes, leaning into his touch. "I'm scared." "So am I. I don't do temporary anymore. I can't." "Then don't." He leaned his forehead against hers. "Stay with me. Not just for tonight. Not just until the storm passes. Stay. You're asking me to leave my entire life behind. I'm asking you to build a new one. With us." Keisha pulled back to look at him. Really look at him. This man who'd killed but protected. Who'd lived in darkness but raised a daughter full of light. Who saw her, truly saw her, in a way no one else ever had. "What if it doesn't work?" she whispered. "What if it does?" Before she could respond, he kissed her. It was gentle at first, tentative, asking permission. But when Keisha kissed him back, it deepened. Became urgent. Became everything they couldn't say with words. His hands tangled in her hair. Her fingers gripped his shoulders. The fire crackled beside them, painting them in gold. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Hyunwoo rested his forehead against hers again. "I can't promise you safety," he said. "I can't promise you easy. But I can promise you this, I will spend every day trying to be worthy of you." Keisha's eyes filled with tears. "You already are." They kissed again, slower this time, savoring it. Hyunwoo pulled her into his lap, wrapped her in his arms, held her like she was precious. "Say yes," he murmured against her lips. "Please. Say you'll come with us." Keisha thought about her apartment in Atlanta. Her job. Her friends. The life she'd built. Then she thought about the emptiness she'd been running from. The loneliness. The endless stream of relationships that took and took without giving back. and she thought about Minji's smile, about how it felt to be needed, about how Hyunwoo looked at her like she was his North Star. Ask me again when the storm passes, she said finally. When we're not in survival mode. When we can think clearly. Disappointment flickered in his eyes, but he nodded. I can wait. But Hyunwoo. She touched his face, memorizing the strong lines of it. I want to say yes. I'm terrified, but I want to. Hope bloomed in his expression, brilliant and fragile. They stayed like that for a long time, wrapped in each other's arms, the fire warming their bodies while something deeper warmed their hearts. From the couch, Minji stirred but didn't wake. And outside, the storm began, finally, to weaken. The storm broke just before dawn on their second night in the cabin. Keisha woke to silence. Real silence. The wind had stopped screaming. The world had gone still. She was wrapped around Hyunwoo on the floor by the fire, Minji asleep on the couch above them. At some point during the night, they'd shifted into this position, her back to his chest, his arm around her waist, their fingers intertwined. It stopped, Hyunwoo murmured against her hair. I know. Neither of them moved. The silence stretched, heavy with everything unspoken. By afternoon, the road should be passable, Hyunwoo said quietly. Someone will come through. We can get help. Yeah. We'll go our separate ways. Keisha turned in his arms to face him. In the dying firelight, his face was all shadows and angles. Beautiful and sad. Is that what you want? She asked. You know it isn't. Then don't let me go. Something broke in his expression. He kissed her fiercely, desperately, like he could make her stay through sheer force of wanting. Keisha kissed him back with everything in her, all her fear and hope and the terrifying realization that she was falling in love with a man she'd known for 2 days. Minji Hyunwoo gasped when they broke apart. Still asleep. We shouldn't. I know. But neither of them stopped. They moved to the far corner of the cabin where shadows were deeper. Hyunwoo spread blankets on the floor, his hands shaking slightly. Are you sure? He asked even as he pulled her down with him. No, Keisha admitted. But I'm doing it anyway. They undressed each other slowly, reverently, mapping scars and soft places with gentle hands. Hyunwoo had marks on his body that told stories Keisha didn't need to hear. She kissed them anyway. When he entered her, it felt like coming home. They moved together in silence, communicating in touches and gasps and the language of skin on skin. It wasn't just physical. It was communion. Connection. The joining of two people who'd found each other in impossible circumstances. Afterward, they lay tangled together, Hyunwoo's hand tracing patterns on Keisha's bare shoulder. I love you, he whispered into the darkness. Keisha's breath caught. You don't have to say that. I'm not saying it because I have to. I'm saying it because it's true. He turned her face toward his. I love you, Keisha Davis. I love your kindness and your strength and the way you look at my daughter. I love that you stopped when you should have kept driving. I love who I am when I'm with you. Tears slipped down Keisha's cheeks. I love you too. God help me, I love you too. They kissed again, softer this time. Then they dressed and returned to the fire just as Minji began to stir. The girl sat up, rubbing her eyes. Is the storm over? Yes, Hyunwoo said gently. It's over. Minji looked between them, something knowing in her young face. Does that mean we're leaving? Soon, Hyunwoo said. When help comes. And then what? It was Keisha who answered. Then we figure out what comes next. Minji's face lit up. Does that mean you're coming with us? Keisha looked at Hyunwoo, saw the hope and fear battling in his eyes. She thought about everything waiting for her in Atlanta. And then she thought about the emptiness that had driven her into these mountains in the first place. She'd been looking for something real. Something that mattered. And she'd found it in the most impossible place. Yes, Keisha said, the word both terrifying and liberating. I'm coming with you. Minji squealed and launched herself at Keisha, hugging her so hard they both fell over. Hyunwoo joined them, wrapping his arms around both his girls, and they lay there in a tangle of limbs and laughter and joy. Are you sure? Hyunwoo asked quietly for Keisha's ears only. No, she admitted. But I'm doing it anyway. It won't be easy. I don't care. They might come looking for us. Then we'll deal with it. Together. He kissed her temple. Together. Hours later they heard an engine. A snowplow making its way up the mountain road, clearing the path. They gathered their few belongings. Hyunwoo stomped out the fire. Minji carefully folded the blankets. Before they left, Keisha took one last look at the cabin. This place that had sheltered them, that had witnessed the birth of something impossible and beautiful. Thank you, she whispered to the empty room. Outside, the world was transformed. Snow blanketed everything in pristine white. The sky was brilliant blue. The sun was so bright it hurt to look at. The snowplow driver was shocked to find them. He radioed for help, offered them rides back to civilization. But as they drove away from the cabin, squeezed together in the truck's cab, Keisha felt no regret. Only certainty. She'd come into these mountains looking for herself. Instead, she'd found family. Minji chattered excitedly about Canada, about starting over, about all three of them together. Hyunwoo held Keisha's hand, his thumb tracing circles on her palm. "What will you tell your friends?" he asked quietly. "Your family?" "The truth," Keisha said. "That I went looking for clarity and found love instead. They'll think you're crazy." "They're probably right." She squeezed his hand. "But some kinds of crazy are worth it." The truck carried them down the mountain, away from the storm, toward an uncertain future. But Keisha wasn't afraid anymore. Because she'd learned something in that cabin, wrapped in a stranger's arms while the world raged outside. Sometimes the most impossible things are the most real. Sometimes you find love in the last place you expect. And sometimes all it takes is one night to change everything. 6 months later. The small apartment in Vancouver overlooked the harbor. It wasn't much, but it was theirs. Keisha stood at the window, sketching the boats in the distance. Behind her, Minji practiced piano, the used instrument Hyunwoo had bought her for her birthday. The music was halting but sweet. Hyunwoo came up behind Keisha, wrapping his arms around her waist, resting his chin on her shoulder. "What are you drawing?" "Our life," she said simply. He kissed her neck. "Are you happy?" Keisha turned in his arms, looking at this man who'd started as a stranger and become her everything. "Yes," she said. "Are you?" "More than I ever thought possible." They'd made it to Canada. Hyunwoo was working construction under a new name, rebuilding his life one honest day at a time. Keisha was freelancing, building a new client base, creating art that felt alive again. Minji was thriving, new school, new friends, still drawing constantly. They were a family. Unconventional, born of crisis but real. Sometimes Keisha thought about that night in the storm. How close they'd come to dying. How impossibly lucky they were to have found each other. "Do you ever regret it?" Hyunwoo asked quietly. "Giving up your old life?" "Never," Keisha said firmly. "Do you regret stopping when I pulled over?" "Best decision I ever made." He kissed her softly. "Even though you almost froze us to death with your broken car." She laughed and swatted his arm. "Your car died first." Details. Minji stopped playing and ran over, inserting herself between them. "Are you two being gross again?" "Extremely gross," Hyunwoo confirmed, pulling both his girls close. They stood there in their small apartment, wrapped in each other, sunlight streaming through the windows. Outside the world kept turning. But inside they had everything they needed. All because of one night. One storm. One impossible choice. Just one night that changed everything.